What do you do when your own child disrespects you, ignores your voice, rolls their eyes, or speaks to you like a stranger? It cuts deep. You've given them everything: time, energy, love, and now they treat you like you don't matter. That kind of pain isn't just frustrating, it's humiliating. But here's the truth. Getting angry won't fix it. Shouting only adds noise to the silence already growing between you. The Stoics knew when you lose control, you lose influence. And in parenting, influence is everything. In this video, I'll show you a 6-step, Stoic-inspired strategy for handling disrespect from your children. Not with rage, but with calm authority. You'll learn how to stay centered, set clear boundaries without shouting, and rebuild trust through presence, not punishment. If you're ready to stop reacting and start leading with strength, this video is for you. Like and subscribe now, because real parenting power starts with inner peace. Let's begin.
Number 1.
Keep your emotions in check. When your child disrespects you, your first instinct might be to snap, to raise your voice, slam the door, or walk away in silent frustration. But here's what the Stoics understood better than anyone else. The person who cannot govern their emotions will be ruled by them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That realization starts not with your child's behavior, but with your response to it. If your child disrespects you and you respond with rage, you've already handed over your authority, not just to them, but to your own impulses. Now, this doesn't mean pretending you don't feel anything. Stoicism is not suppression, it's transformation. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In this moment, when your child rolls their eyes, slams their bedroom door, or hurls a cruel word your way, it feels personal. But the first thing you must do is depersonalize it, not to excuse it, but to stay free from the trap of reactivity. Their behavior is a reflection of their inner chaos, not your failure as a parent. That separation is critical. So what does staying calm actually look like? It's not about passive silence, it's active restraint. You ground yourself in your breath, you drop your shoulders, you let your voice lower, not rise, and instead of reacting from ego, how dare you speak to me like that? You respond from clarity. I'm not going to continue this conversation until we can speak respectfully. That single sentence, spoken without heat, has more power than 1,000 shouted commands. Consider this. Children are emotional mirrors. They reflect what they see. If they see you lose your composure every time things get hard, they learn that emotions are uncontrollable. But if they witness you breathing through the storm, pausing, collecting yourself, speaking with intent, they absorb something far more powerful than discipline. They learn mastery. This is exactly how Barack Obama parented his daughters while carrying the weight of an entire nation. Michelle Obama once said that no matter what was happening in the world, Barack would sit with the girls at dinner, stay calm, ask thoughtful questions, and never let the stress show through in rage or dismissal. That level of presence is not natural. It is practiced. It is chosen. It is the result of a man who knew that real power lies in restraint. And yet, let's be honest, staying calm when disrespected by your own child is one of the hardest things a parent can do. Why? Because it doesn't just hurt, it feels like betrayal. But if you can train yourself to view that pain as a signal, not a sentence, you can change everything. The Stoics believe that every challenge is an opportunity for practice. So when your child provokes you, it's your moment to practice composure. Not for their sake alone, but for your own evolution. You can feel your frustration without obeying it. You can acknowledge the sting of disrespect without being consumed by it. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." And in parenting, that truth multiplies. The damage of a harsh word shouted in anger can linger longer than the behavior that caused it. Instead, imagine a different path. Your child lashes out, you pause, you breathe, you look them in the eye, not with contempt, but with anchored presence. You say, "We'll talk when you're ready to speak respectfully." And then you step away, not in punishment, but in power. That's the kind of memory that leaves a mark. That's the kind of memory that teaches. Because here's the deeper truth. Composure creates space. Space for your child to reflect. Space for the relationship to reset. And space for you to act from wisdom instead of woundedness. It's in that space, as Viktor Frankl wrote, that we find our freedom. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You must choose your response not just once, but again and again, especially when it's hard. Because every time you do, you teach your child something sacred. That love doesn't mean chaos, that respect begins with self-regulation, that calm is not weakness, but maturity. Eventually, your child will test you again. They'll say something that cuts deep, and in that moment, you'll be tempted to rise to their level. But don't. Rise above it, not to dominate, but to lead, because you cannot demand respect while losing self-control. You must embody the very qualities you want them to develop. And when they grow up and face life's storms, they'll remember you, not just as the one who raised them, but as the one who showed them how to remain unshaken.
Number 2.
Show understanding without giving in. When your child is rude, silent, or dismissive, your instinct might be to confront the behavior immediately, to call it out, to say, "That's not how you speak to me." And while holding them accountable is necessary, reacting too quickly often causes you to miss something more important. What's driving the behavior beneath the surface? Stoicism invites us to look deeper. Epictetus said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." That wasn't an excuse for others' bad behavior. It was a call to lead with wisdom. A child's disrespect is often not a sign of rebellion, but of confusion, stress, or emotional overload. They may not know how to ask for help, so they push you away. They may feel ashamed of something and deflect with attitude. They may even feel disconnected from you, and disrespect becomes their way of testing whether you still care enough to respond. This doesn't mean you tolerate it, but it does mean you interpret it wisely. Reacting harshly to what you think is just disrespect might cause you to miss the silent cry underneath it all. The Stoic path doesn't deny emotion. It sees emotion for what it is. Data, clues. Your job is to decode them. So when your child slams a door or rolls their eyes, pause. Ask yourself, what are they really trying to say without knowing how? Maybe it's, "I'm scared." Maybe it's, "I feel like I'm not good enough." Or, "I don't know how to ask for your attention without making you angry." You may never hear those words directly, but if you train your eyes to see past the attitude, you'll begin to hear what most parents miss. The emotion behind the resistance. Now this is critical. Showing understanding is not the same as giving in. You can be compassionate without becoming passive. You can say, "I understand you're upset," and still hold the line. But that tone is not acceptable. Boundaries and empathy are not opposites. They are allies. Boundaries give children structure. Empathy gives them safety. And when both are present, real growth begins. Look at someone like Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers didn't tolerate cruelty or meanness, but he also never met a child's pain with control or shame. He listened, he asked questions, he reflected feelings back with language that made them feel human, not broken. This is emotional clarity in action. This is what Stoicism looks like in parenting. Calm observation over emotional chaos. You're not being weak when you choose to understand before you discipline. You're being strategic because understanding opens a door that punishment alone slams shut. And when a child feels safe enough to walk through that door, they bring their honesty with them. Honesty leads to vulnerability. And from vulnerability, trust is born. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what value they saw in that action." In other words, people act from what they believe will serve them. Even if they're wrong, your child lashes out not because they want disconnection, but because they don't know how to ask for reconnection. And if you can see that, while still holding the boundary, they will begin to feel safe not only to speak, but to change. It helps to remember that what children express outwardly is rarely the full picture. Sometimes disrespect is just a cover for deeper emotional needs they're too ashamed to express. A Stoic parent doesn't just react to the external, they observe, wait, and listen for the internal shift. That level of awareness makes all the difference. When your child knows you will hear them, not just correct them, they develop emotional literacy. They learn that feelings don't make them bad, and rules don't make you cruel. They learn that discipline can come from love, not fear. That's the long game. That's parenting like a Stoic, slow, intentional, and built to last. So how do you apply this? The next time your child disrespects you, take a breath. Instead of rushing to label it, investigate it, ask gently, "You seem upset. Want to talk later?" Or, "That didn't sound like you. What's going on?" They might ignore you at first. That's fine. Your calm is the seed. Stay consistent. Over time, that seed will grow. If their behavior continues, set the line clearly. "I care about what you're going through, but we don't speak to each other like that in this house." Let the consequence be calm, but consistent. No yelling, no cold shoulders, just firm presence. That's what Stoic parenting looks like. Loving and clear, never cruel and confused. Because here's the truth. A child who is both seen and held accountable grows up with both strength and softness. And they carry that forward into every relationship they'll ever have. They learn that someone can love them enough to understand and strong enough to correct them. That's what real guidance looks like. And it begins always with your decision to understand without surrendering, to lead with empathy, not ego, to be the parent they can respect, even when they resist you.
Number 3.
Set clear boundaries calmly. When a child disrespects you, one of the most natural reactions is to assert control. To say, "I'm the parent, you will not speak to me that way." But here's the truth. Control without clarity leads to confusion, and authority without consistency leads to resentment. What your child needs most in these moments isn't more volume, it's more structure. And the Stoics taught us that real strength is quiet, deliberate, and firm, not explosive, not erratic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That applies directly to parenting. Don't just tell your children to be respectful, model what respectful authority looks like. And it begins with one of the most underrated parenting tools, calm boundaries. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They're not threats barked in frustration. They are clear expectations paired with fair consequences delivered without emotion. Why? Because when you yell, when you explode, when you discipline from anger, you blur the message. The child stops hearing the boundary and starts reacting to the tone. Fear replaces learning. Defensiveness replaces accountability. But when the boundary is firm and calm, it lands, it holds, and it teaches. So what does this look like in practice? Let's say your child rolls their eyes and storms off when asked to clean their room. The reactive parent says, "You don't speak to me like that. Clean it now or I'm taking your phone." The Stoic parent instead might say calmly, "I expect you to take care of your responsibilities. If the room isn't cleaned by tonight, I'll assume you're choosing to lose phone privileges tomorrow. That's your decision." No yelling, no shaming, just structure. Notice the shift. It's no longer about domination. It's about teaching that actions have natural consequences. The boundary is not a punishment, it's a principle. And this approach removes the power struggle. Your child learns, I can choose my actions, but I can't choose the consequences. That's how real-world accountability is formed. One public figure who practiced this well was Michelle Obama. In interviews, she spoke about raising her daughters with structure, calm routines, and firm boundaries. If they didn't follow the rules, there were consequences. But there was no drama, no raised voices, just clarity. And because of that, her daughters learned to respect both the rules and the person behind them. This is key. When you deliver boundaries calmly, you signal maturity. You show your child that you're not reactive, that you're not losing control just because they are. And over time, they begin to internalize that steadiness. They may test the limits, yes, but the limits stay clear. And that consistency becomes a form of safety. It's also worth noting that many children actually crave boundaries. Even if they pretend to resist them, boundaries are proof that someone cares enough to guide them. A child left to do whatever they want doesn't feel free. They feel abandoned. Stoicism, with its emphasis on order, discipline, and rational living, reminds us that freedom without structure isn't liberty. It's chaos. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And your child will never learn self-mastery if they aren't taught to respect limits. Those limits begin with you, not just your words, but your follow-through. If you say a consequence will happen and it doesn't, the boundary collapses, your credibility weakens. But if you follow through with calm, consistent action, your words begin to carry weight. You no longer have to escalate because your presence already speaks. But here's what makes this even more powerful. When you set boundaries from a calm state, you preserve the relationship. You teach your child that conflict doesn't have to mean disconnection, that correction doesn't have to come with cruelty, and in a world where many people associate rules with rejection, this lesson is priceless. So when your child disrespects you, don't meet fire with fire. Meet it with clarity. Calmly state what is and what will happen if the boundary is crossed. Don't explain over and over. Don't try to convince. Be brief, be clear, be steady, and walk away if necessary. Let the consequence speak louder than your words. This doesn't mean being cold, it means being grounded. You can set a limit and still be loving. You can hold your child accountable and still be close. In fact, the more calmly you hold the boundary, the more respect they will feel. Even if they don't show it right away, because what you're offering them is more than a rule. You're offering them a standard, and that standard will echo in their minds long after the moment passes. And finally, remember this. Children don't remember every word you say, but they will remember how you made them feel in moments of conflict. Did you make them feel small, or did you make them feel held? Did you explode, or did you guide? The Stoic parent always chooses the path that builds, not breaks, the path that corrects, but still connects.
Number 4.
Set the example you want to see. It's one of the hardest truths for a parent to accept. Your child listens to what you do far more than what you say. You can give 100 lectures about respect, honesty, discipline, but if your actions contradict your words, they will follow your example, not your instructions. The Stoics warned about this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your principles be brief and fundamental, that you do nothing without a purpose, and that you always speak the truth." In other words, live what you teach, or your teaching means nothing. If you want your child to be calm, you must model calmness. If you want them to be respectful, you must show them what respect looks like. Even when you're angry, especially when you're angry, because that's when your true example is revealed. Not in moments of ease, but in moments of emotional heat. Think about it. How can you expect your child to apologize when they've hurt someone, if you refuse to apologize when you've overreacted? How can you demand that they listen attentively when you interrupt them mid-sentence or dismiss their feelings as drama? Every time you break the standard you're trying to enforce, you send one loud message. This rule doesn't really matter. Stoicism demands consistency between what you value and how you act. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest. It's about owning your mistakes, and yes, even parents must do that, especially parents. Because to a child, a parent's humility is not a weakness, it's a revelation. When you say, "I got too frustrated earlier," that wasn't fair to you. You're teaching emotional accountability. You're showing them what it looks like to lead with both strength and self-awareness. This is why the Stoics practice self-scrutiny every night. Epictetus told his students to reflect, "What did I do well today? What did I do poorly? What could I do better tomorrow?" Imagine if every parent ended their day with that kind of honest inventory. Not, "Did my child behave?" but "Did I live in a way worth imitating?" That shift changes everything. Consider the example of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's spoken openly about how he works to model discipline, emotional openness, and presence for his daughters, not by preaching, but by showing up. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. When he messes up, he owns it. That's not soft parenting. That's stoic parenting, a presence that commands respect without demanding it. And it's not just about the dramatic moments, it's about the daily rituals. When you speak with kindness to the cashier at the store, your child notices. When you make time to read instead of scroll, they absorb that rhythm. When you keep your word, even when it's inconvenient, they learn that integrity isn't optional. These small acts shape their worldview, because to a child, the habits of a parent form the blueprint of adulthood. That's why Stoicism puts so much weight on exemplum. The living example, Seneca wrote, "Long is the road by precept, but short and effective by example." You could lecture your child every day for a year, and it wouldn't teach as much as 1 week of quietly embodying what you believe. They will watch how you handle conflict, how you respond to failure, how you treat people when no one's watching, and that's what they'll remember. That's what they'll imitate, consciously or not. Now here's where the real challenge lies. Your child will test you, they will provoke you, they will look you in the eye and do the opposite of what you've asked, and in that moment, you will be tempted to respond with power, to enforce authority. But what if you responded with consistency instead? What if, instead of shouting, you held your boundary? What if, instead of blaming, you reflected calmly? That repetition of calm strength, clear structure, and self-control is what eventually takes root. You are not just correcting behavior, you are modeling a way of being. And the more you embody the virtues you want them to grow into, the less you'll need to rely on force, because your example will become their standard. One of the greatest gifts you can give your child is this. Let your life be proof that respect is earned by integrity, not intimidation. Let them see you make hard choices. Let them see you admit when you're wrong. Let them see you show up even when it's inconvenient. In doing so, you teach them that values are not just words, they're actions repeated daily. So before you ask, "Why isn't my child changing?" ask first, "What am I showing them to follow?" Because when your life becomes your message, your child doesn't just listen. They begin to align. Not because you force them, but because you inspired them. Not because they fear you, but because they trust you. And in the end, that's the highest influence a parent can have.
Number 5.
Create moments of connection outside of conflict. Too often, a parent's only real interaction with their child happens in moments of correction, the arguments, the reminders, the discipline. It becomes a loop. Problem arises, parent reacts, child resists. But in this constant back and forth, something vital gets lost. The relationship itself. And without relationship, no boundary, no lecture, no rule truly sticks. As the Stoics understood, influence is not built in the heat of battle. It is built in the quiet moments in between. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Now ask yourself, when was the last time you enjoyed your child? Not managed them, not corrected them, but simply enjoyed being in their presence. If your relationship is all conflict, correction starts to feel like control. But when connection exists, correction is received as care. This is why it's crucial to create moments of connection outside of conflict. These are not grand, elaborate events. They are simple, consistent, intentional, baking cookies together, taking a walk with no agenda, sitting down for 5 minutes of undistracted eye contact while they talk about something that matters to them, even if it doesn't interest you. These tiny moments of presence build trust slowly, like drops of water filling a jar. Because what happens during these moments is subtle but powerful. Your child starts to feel seen, and when a child feels seen, they soften. They become more open, more honest, and yes, more willing to listen. It's not manipulation, it's foundation. You're not buying their respect, you're earning their trust. The Stoics placed enormous value on presence. Epictetus reminded us to keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. In parenting, your attention, your presence, is one of your most powerful tools, but today it's also one of the most neglected. Too many parents are physically present but emotionally absent. The phone is in hand, the mind is elsewhere, the body is in the room, but the connection is missing, and children can feel that. They feel when your eyes glaze over. They feel when your answers are rushed. Over time, they learn. Mom or dad isn't really here, and if they don't feel safe to connect during peace, they won't know how to respond during conflict. This is why someone like Steve Jobs, despite his intense public persona, was known for setting clear boundaries with his own children around technology at home. He made space for presence. Family dinner wasn't optional. He understood that true influence is relational, not transactional, that trust must be planted and watered daily. The same applies to you. Think of your connection with your child as a bank account. Every moment of presence is a deposit. Every moment of disconnection, criticism, or anger is a withdrawal. If your account is always overdrawn, don't be surprised when your child stops listening. But if you make regular deposits, quiet walks, inside jokes, listening without judgment, you build enough relational credit that, when correction is needed, it doesn't bankrupt the bond. This doesn't mean becoming your child's best friend. It means becoming someone they don't fear, someone whose presence brings safety, not tension. Because ultimately, children don't open up to the parent who lectures the best. They open up to the one who listens the most. So what can you do today? Start small. Put the phone down during dinner. Ask your child what they're into lately, and listen without trying to fix it. Share a moment from your own day, not as a lesson, but just as a way to be human. Invite them for a short walk, even if they roll their eyes. These invitations matter. Even when rejected, they send a message. I'm here, I care, I see you. And don't mistake silence for lack of connection. Sometimes your presence is enough. Sometimes sitting beside them while they play a video game, or while you read your book and they scroll their phone, still counts. Because what they remember is that you were there, not talking, just being. And that's what Stoicism trains us for. To be rooted in the moment, undisturbed by performance, anchored in real presence. When you make space for joy, peace, and presence outside of the storm, you transform how the storm is weathered. Your child begins to see you not just as a rule enforcer, but as a steady companion. And from that place, even discipline feels different. It's not something being done to them, it's something coming from someone they trust. So make connection your habit, not your afterthought. Because in the end, children don't grow from rules alone. They grow from relationships, and the strength of your influence will rise or fall with the strength of your bond. Number 6, give them space to reflect. After you've addressed a disrespectful moment with your child, after you've stayed calm, set the boundary and stood your ground, what comes next matters just as much. And ironically, what often follows is silence, not punishment, not lectures, but a deliberate pause. Because in that space, something powerful can begin to happen. Reflection. The Stoics understood that wisdom doesn't come from being told what's right. It comes from seeing it, sitting with it, and arriving at it internally. Epictetus put it this way: it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And when a child is fresh off an argument or correction, what they often feel is resistance, not receptiveness. Trying to force an apology or push them to talk usually backfires. They aren't ready, not yet. So the Stoic parent steps back, not out of indifference, but out of deep respect. You've done your part. Now let them do theirs. Give them space to feel, to process, to recognize without your pressure what just happened and what it meant. Because real learning, the kind that sticks, happens after the dust settles. It happens in stillness. Think of it like this. Your job is not to push reflection, but to prepare the conditions for it. Just like a gardener doesn't grow the tree, they plant, water, and wait. You offer the correction, and then you wait. You don't micromanage their reaction. You don't chase them for closure. You leave the door open and let them walk through it on their own terms. Because when a child owns their actions without coercion, they grow from the inside out. This kind of restraint requires tremendous trust. Trust in the process. Trust in your child's capacity to reflect. And trust in yourself. It also requires strength, because silence can feel like failure. The human impulse is to fix, to explain, to clarify. But the Stoics taught a different posture. Patience rooted in perspective. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, and your life will be serene." When your child pulls away after a confrontation, don't misread that as rejection. It may simply be their nervous system resetting. Their mind is trying to make sense of what just happened. If you swoop in too quickly to demand emotional resolution, you interrupt that natural digestion process. You short-circuit the growth. Now let's be clear. Giving space is not the same as giving up. It's not passive, it's deliberate. You're not storming out, you're stepping aside with purpose. That distinction is everything. One communicates anger, the other communicates trust, and children feel the difference. This approach is echoed in the life of Oprah Winfrey. She has shared that, as a child, it wasn't the adults who yelled that made an impact. It was the ones who waited, who allowed her to sit with her choices, who trusted her to come back with insight when she was ready. That trust made her feel dignified, not diminished, and that's what space does. It creates dignity, and from that dignity, responsibility begins to form. Sometimes your child won't reflect as quickly as you'd like. Their silence may feel like avoidance, but if your relationship is grounded in presence and consistency, their silence isn't empty, it's processing. It's the beginning of ownership. Quietly, without spectacle, change starts to form. And here's the hidden beauty. Space isn't just for them, it's for you. It allows you to reflect. It gives you a pause to reconnect with your own intentions. Did you act from clarity or from fear? Did you speak from wisdom or frustration? These pauses strengthen your self-awareness just as much as they nurture your child's growth. Sometimes reflection shows up in small ways. a softer tone, a willingness to listen, an unspoken gesture. These are signs of internal shifts. When you see them, acknowledge them briefly. Say, "I noticed that. Thank you." Let your approval be calm and sincere, not exaggerated, because consistency, not drama, builds character. What matters in these moments is that you stay steady, stay warm, but grounded. Don't chase, don't withdraw, just be present, because your presence, calm, dependable, and unshaken, becomes the emotional mirror they eventually look into. And when they do return, when they offer a quiet sorry or begin to act differently, respond not with lectures, but with grace. Don't reopen the wound. Don't demand a performance. Just say, "I appreciate that," and let it land. The goal isn't to win a debate, it's to raise a human being who can think, feel, and take ownership. That's the essence of Stoic parenting. We cannot control how fast someone learns. We can only create the space where learning becomes possible. We hold boundaries, we model composure, and then we step back. Because in that pause, we don't just give room for responsibility, we teach it. So the next time your child disrespects you and you've already responded with clarity, resist the urge to hover, trust the silence, let the moment breathe, and believe that something good is unfolding, even if you can't see it yet. Because in that sacred space where no words are forced and no shame is stirred, your child doesn't just hear your wisdom, they begin to hear their own. Parenting is not a performance, it's a practice. And the truth is, you're not raising a child, you're raising a future adult. Every calm boundary, every moment of silence, every decision to stay composed instead of reactive, it all becomes part of the emotional blueprint they carry for life. You won't always see instant results, but that doesn't mean your presence isn't working. The Stoics remind us, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Your steadiness, your restraint, your grace under fire, that's the real lesson. If this video gave you clarity or strength, pass it on. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. You are not alone on this path. You're walking the long road, quietly, deliberately, and with purpose. And that kind of parenting, that's not just stoic, that's powerful.